Dropped off my granddaughter at my house for one night. The next morning, my granddaughter whispered to me, "Grandma, Mommy said I can't tell you what I saw at home." I bent down to her level and asked softly, "Sweetheart, what was it that you saw?" Her answer made me call the police immediately. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge. Before we begin, a huge thank you to all of you. We've officially hit 500 subscribers. It's a small milestone but a big deal for us. And now our eyes are set on the 1,000 subscribers goal. To help us get there, please hit the like button. Subscribe so you never miss a story. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and how you're doing. Your support truly encourages us and keeps this channel going now. Let's jump into the story. That evening is still burned into my memory. The porch light flickered softly as cold air drifted through the quiet street. I live alone in a modest house on the edge of town, a place filled with memories that refuse to fade. When my daughter-in-law Jenna arrived with my granddaughter, Lily, something felt off immediately. Jenna barely stepped inside. She kept glancing over her shoulder like someone might be watching her. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the strap of her purse. "It's just for one night," she said, repeating herself twice. I nodded, though my chest felt tight. Lily stood close to her mother, clutching her old teddy bear. Milo, the bear, was worn thin, missing one button eye, but Lily never let it go. Her little face looked tired, too tired for a 5-year-old. After Jenna left, Lily barely touched the dinner I made. She sat quietly on the couch, hugging Milo, staring at the TV without really watching it. The child who once filled my house with laughter now seemed like a shadow of herself. That night, Lily slept in the bed beside mine. Long after the lights were off, I heard her breathing change, slow, uneven, heavy with fear. Around midnight, she whimpered in her sleep, "Grandma, don't let her lock me down there." My heart nearly stopped. The next morning, I made breakfast like everything was normal. Eggs, toast, warm milk. Lily came into the kitchen rubbing her eyes, her face pale. That's when she looked up at me and whispered those words that shattered my world. "Grandma, there's a little girl in our house. She's locked downstairs. She cries all the time." My hands went numb. The spoon slipped from my fingers and hit the floor. And in that moment, I knew this was only the beginning of something terrifying. But what Lily told me next proved this wasn't a child's imagination, that someone's life was already in danger. I pulled Lily into my arms the moment the spoon hit the floor. Her little body trembled against mine, like she had been holding that secret in for far too long. "It's okay," I whispered, though my own voice was shaking. "Grandma's here. You're safe." But Lily shook her head slowly. Her fingers tightened around Milo's torn ear. "She's not safe, Grandma. She's downstairs. Behind the door. Mommy says I must never open." A chill ran straight through me. I tried to steady myself. Children imagine things, I told myself. Nightmares, fears, stories, they mix together. But Lily's eyes, those eyes were not imagining anything. They were filled with the kind of fear no child should know. "Can you tell me about the little girl?" I asked gently. Lily hesitated, then nodded. "She's smaller than me. Her hands hurt. Sometimes she bangs on the door. But Mommy tells me to cover my ears and go to my room." My stomach turned. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rush out the door, drive straight to Jenna's house, and tear every wall apart. But I couldn't. I had to be smart. If I scared Lily or acted too fast, she might shut down completely. So I hugged her tighter and said, "You did the right thing telling me." Lily looked up at me, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Mommy said bad things happen if I talk." Those words broke something inside me. Later that morning, I took Lily to school. She walked beside me quietly, her small hand cold in mine. At the classroom door, she clung to me longer than usual. "Grandma, "Please don't let me go back there," she whispered. I promised her I wouldn't, even though I had no idea how I was going to keep that promise. After I left the school, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel. My mind replayed every moment I'd ever spent with Jenna, the woman she used to be, the woman she'd become after my son died. That's when I remembered something else. Over the past few months, neighbors had mentioned strange noises coming from Jenna's house. Late night crying, lights on at odd hours. At the time, everyone brushed it off as Lily having nightmares. But what if it wasn't Lily? I went home and made a call I never thought I'd have to make. My hands shook as I dialed. When the police officer answered, I said the words slowly, carefully, afraid they might disappear if I rushed them. My granddaughter told me there is a child locked in my daughter and basement. There was a pause on the line. Then the officer said, "Ma'am, we need to talk." But when I went to the police station later that day, I realized something terrifying. No one was ready to believe a little girl or an old woman like me. The police station smelled like old coffee and dust. The kind of place where hope feels thin the moment you walk in. I sat on a hard plastic chair, my purse clenched in my lap, repeating Lily's words over and over in my mind so I wouldn't forget a single detail. A middle-aged detective finally called my name. His face was tired, his eyes polite but distant. I told him everything. About Lily's fear. About the locked basement door. About the crying. About the way Jenna warned her to stay quiet. I expected shock, urgency, something. Instead, he leaned back and sighed. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "children imagine things, especially after trauma." Trauma. As if that single word explained everything away. "I know my granddaughter," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "This isn't a dream. She's terrified." He nodded slowly, like someone humoring a child. "Do you have proof?" "Bruises, photos, another witness." I shook my head. "Then there's not much we can do right now," he said. "We can file a report, but without evidence, we can't enter someone's home." The words hit me harder than I expected. "So you're telling me," I whispered, "that if there is a child locked in that house, you're just going to wait?" His expression softened slightly, but his answer didn't change. "We need facts, not fear." I left the station feeling smaller than I had in years. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Messages from neighbors. Missed calls. Whispers had already started spreading. Apparently, Jenna had been busy. "She says you're confused. She says you're trying to take Lily away. She says grief has finally made you lose your mind." At the grocery store that afternoon, people avoided my eyes. Two women near the checkout whispered loudly enough for me to hear. "Poor thing. Making up stories about her own family." I wanted to scream. That evening, Jenna arrived to pick up Lily. She didn't come inside. She stood stiffly at the door, her smile sharp and fake. "We won't be needing your help anymore," she said coldly. "You've caused enough trouble." Lily hugged me tight, her arms wrapped around my neck. "Grandma, please," she whispered. Jenna pulled her away. As the car drove off, Lily turned around in her seat and looked at me through the back window. Her eyes were wide with fear. That look haunted me. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Jenna wasn't scared of the police. She was scared of me. And the very next day, a neighbor told me something he'd seen late at night, something that made Lily's story impossible to ignore. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily's face pressed against the car window, silently begging me not to let her go back. The house felt colder than usual, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Early the next morning, I sat on the porch with a cup of untouched coffee, staring at the street. That's when I saw Mr. Henderson walking his slow morning loop with his cane. He'd lived next door for over 20 years, quiet, observant, the kind of man who noticed things others ignored. He stopped when he saw me. "Carol," he said gently. Are you all right? Something in his voice made my chest tighten. I didn't trust myself to speak at first, so I just nodded. But he didn't move on. Instead, he lowered himself onto the porch step beside me. I heard some things going around, he said carefully. About Lily, about Jenna. I looked down at my hands. They think I'm losing my mind. Mr. Henderson shook his head. That got my attention. He hesitated, then leaned closer and lowered his voice. Last week, I couldn't sleep. It was after midnight. I was looking out my window when I saw Jenna pull into her driveway. My heart started pounding. She wasn't alone, he continued. She was holding a little girl's hand. Smaller than Lily, the child was crying. My breath caught in my throat. At first, I thought maybe it was a niece or a friend's kid, he said. But then I heard crying again. Late at night. Coming from the basement area. The world seemed to tilt. Why didn't you tell anyone? I asked. He looked ashamed. Because accusing someone of something like that can destroy lives. I told myself I was mistaken. I reached out and grabbed his hand. You weren't. That afternoon, I went to Lily's school and asked to speak with her teacher, Mrs. Carter. She'd taught Lily since preschool and knew her better than most. She's changed, Mrs. Carter admitted quietly. She zones out. She draws dark pictures, little stick figures behind lines. Like bars. That was it. To people, two separate stories. One terrifying truth. That evening, Mr. Henderson knocked on my door again, this time holding his phone. My nephew installed a security camera for me last year, he said. I checked the footage. My hands shook as I watched the grainy video. There was Jenna, and beside her, a small, unfamiliar child being rushed inside. I finally had proof, and I knew exactly where I was going next. But when I took that video back to the police, I never expected what they'd discover. About the little girl and how deep this nightmare really went. I didn't wait until morning. The moment Mr. Henderson handed me his phone, I knew time wasn't on our side. Every second that little girl stayed in that house was a second too long. I wrapped my coat around me, clutched the phone like it was made of glass, and headed straight back to the police station. The same detective was on duty. When he saw me walk in again, his expression tightened. Ma'am, I told you. I have proof, I said, placing the phone on his desk. Please, just watch. The room went quiet as the video played. Grainy footage. A dim driveway. Jenna stepping out of her car. And then Clara's Dea, small child being led inside by the hand. The girl stumbled slightly, like she was exhausted or afraid. The detective leaned forward. That's not Lily, he muttered. No, I said, my voice breaking. It's the girl my granddaughter told me about. He paused the video and called another officer over. They watched it twice. Then a third time. Do we have any missing child reports? The detective asked. A younger officer began typing. The clicking of the keyboard sounded unbearably loud in the small room. Then he froze. Detective, he said slowly, turning the screen. There's a match. My heart slammed against my ribs. 5-year-old female. Missing for 2 weeks. From the next county. The room seemed to spin. She was taken from a playground, the officer continued. No leads. No suspects. The detective straightened in his chair, all doubt gone from his face. Get me a search warrant, now. I collapsed into the chair behind me, my legs giving out. Relief and terror flooded through me at the same time. Relief that they finally believed me. Terror of what they might find. As I stood to leave, the detective stopped me. Ma'am, he said quietly, you did the right thing. Outside, the sky was dark and heavy with clouds. I went home and waited. Every sound made me jump. Every passing car tightened my chest. Late that night, my phone rang. It was the detective. We're moving at dawn, he said. Be ready. I hung up and sat in the silence, staring at my late son's photo on the wall. "Please," I whispered, "protect her." Because in just a few hours, the truth would be dragged into the light. But nothing could have prepared me for what we heard when the basement door finally opened. Dawn hadn't fully broken when the police cars pulled up outside Jenna's house. Red and blue lights flashed silently against the gray sky. I stood a few steps back, my hands shaking so badly I had to lock them together just to stay upright. This was it. The detective approached the front door and knocked firmly. "Police, we have a warrant." For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then the door flew open. Jenna stood there in her robe, her face pale, her eyes wild. The moment she saw me standing behind the officers, her expression twisted into pure hatred. "You did this," she hissed. "You're trying to destroy me." Before I could answer, the officers stepped inside. Jenna began screaming, crying, insisting this was all a mistake. Her brother rushed out from the hallway, shouting that they had no right to be there. But the police didn't stop. They searched every room, closets, bedrooms, cabinets. Nothing. A heavy silence settled in the house. Then the detective turned toward the end of the hallway. The basement door. It was old, metal, locked with a thick padlock. Jenna lunged forward. "You can't go down there. It's just storage." Two officers restrained her as she began sobbing hysterically. The detective nodded to one of them. "Open it." The lock snapped open with a sharp metallic crack. The door creaked as it slowly swung inward. At first, there was only darkness. Then we heard it. A sound so small, so broken, it barely felt real. Crying. Not loud, not dramatic. Weak, hoarse, like it had been going on for far too long. My knees buckled. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across the basement. And then I saw her. A tiny girl huddled in the corner, knees pulled to her chest. Her arm wrapped in a dirty cloth. Her hair was tangled. Her face streaked with grime and tears. Her eyes were wide with terror. She flinched when the light hit her. "It's okay," an officer said gently, kneeling. "You're safe now." The little girl whispered something I'll never forget. "Please, don't lock me again." I broke down right there. Jenna screamed behind me, collapsing to the floor as the officers moved in. Handcuffs clicked shut. Her brother shouted in rage as they dragged him back. An ambulance was called immediately. The child Sophie was carried out wrapped in a blanket. As she passed me, her eyes met mine, and in them, I saw exactly what Lily had seen, pure fear. But as Sophie was taken away, the police uncovered something even darker. Something that proved this nightmare was far bigger than just one locked basement. As the ambulance doors closed and Sophie was rushed away, I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. The officers continued searching the basement. What they found there turned my stomach and chilled the air around us. Hidden behind old boxes and broken furniture were notebooks, of them filled with frantic writing, strange symbols, and repeated phrases about purification and chosen children. The detective flipped through one, his face hardening. "This isn't just abuse," he said quietly. "This is organized." One name appeared over and over again in the pages. Esteban Vargas. The detective's jaw tightened. "He's the leader of a group we've been tracking for months, radical, dangerous. They target vulnerable children." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Jenna hadn't just snapped. She had been pulled into something dark. Something planned. As officers let her out in handcuffs, she turned toward me one last time. Her face wasn't angry anymore. It was empty. "You ruined everything," she whispered. I wanted to ask her why. Why she didn't ask for help. Why she let it go this far. Why she put Lily in danger. But the words never came. Inside the house, Lily sat curled up on the couch, clutching Milo. When she saw me, she ran straight into my arms. "She's gone, Grandma," she asked softly. "Yes," I whispered, holding her tight. "She's safe now." For the first time in days, Lily cried not from fear, but from release. Outside, the neighbors stood silently. The same people who had whispered behind my back now couldn't meet my eyes. One woman quietly said, "I'm so sorry. We should have listened." I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted. Later that day, I went to the hospital. Sophie's parents had just arrived. When they saw their daughter, they collapsed around her bed, sobbing, holding her like they'd never let go again. Her mother took my hands and cried, "Thank you for saving her." I shook my head. It was my granddaughter. That night, Lily slept beside me again. This time, her breathing was calm. But as I stared at the ceiling, one thought wouldn't leave me. Jenna had been Lily's mother, and the scars of that truth wouldn't disappear overnight. But healing wouldn't come. Is Leanne the final test of our strength was still waiting. The days that followed were quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar, not empty, just still. Like the world had finally stopped screaming long enough for us to breathe. Lily stayed with me. The court didn't hesitate. After everything that came out, there was no question where she belonged. The first night she knew she wasn't going back to that house. She slept through until morning without a single nightmare. That alone felt like a miracle. Sophie remained in the hospital for a while. Her arm healed slowly, but her parents never left her side. When they invited Lily and me to visit, I wasn't sure how it would go. I worried the memories might be too much. But when the girls saw each other, something incredible happened. They smiled. Not big, loud smiles, but small, real ones. The kind that say, "I survived." The community changed too. The whispers stopped. People who once avoided me now nodded respectfully or stopped to apologize. Some even thanked me. But I didn't need apologies. I only needed to know that the truth had finally mattered. Jenna was charged with multiple crimes. The investigation uncovered her connection to the group the detective had mentioned. It was bigger than our town, bigger than I ever imagined. Knowing that made my stomach turn. But it also reminded me how close we came to losing everything. One evening, Lily sat beside me on the porch, watching the sun dip below the rooftops. "Grandma," she asked quietly, "was I bad for telling?" I turned to her and held her face in my hands. "No, my love," I said firmly. "You were brave. You were a hero." She leaned into me and smiled, a real one this time. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she whispered, "I feel safe now." I sat there long after she fell asleep, tears running silently down my face. Not from sadness, but from relief. I looked at my son's photo on the wall and whispered, "I kept my promise." Because sometimes, doing the right thing means standing alone. Sometimes it means being doubted, judged, and pushed aside. But sometimes, it saves a life. And if you were in my place, would you have stayed silent? Or would you have listened to a child's whisper and chosen the truth, no matter the cost? Tell me in the comments what you would have done. And thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story so more people remember. No matter how old you are, it's never too late to stand up for yourself.